Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. It was not that long ago that parts and service seemed to have a battle nearly all the time, something out of the Old West. And Kaylee Felio is the sales and marketing manager at PartsEdge to kind of remove those barriers. Kaylee, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about this.
I am too, and it's a great subject. You've got a superstar panel. I'm looking forward to it. And if it's okay, I'm going to step out of the way and let you get things going.
Thank you. All right. Well, I want to get everyone introduced. So just, say your name, where you're from, and your position. And we'll start with Ellen.
Hello, I'm Ellen Haney. I'm from Jeff Schmidt Auto Group in Beaver Creek, Ohio, and I am the Nissan Parts Department Manager.
I'll go next. I'm Robert Migliaccio. I am the Service Director at CMA Valley's Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Stanton, Virginia.
Hello, I'm Mike Weldon with the Hansel Auto Group. I'm the Fixed Ops Director for our dealer group.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Butler. I am the Parts and Service Director in East Tennessee for Umansky Auto Group.
Awesome. Well, so it sounds like we have parts and service directors, and then we have one parts manager. So with all of you guys being parts and service, did you come up through parts or just come up through service or both? Because I always, with fixed ops directors, they tend to come up from service. I like to kind of see, where we're going to battle this conversation. Robert, did you come through parts or service or both?
So for me, I actually came up through the parts department. I started in recon, actually, and I worked my way up through the back of the house: parts driver, shipper receiver, counterman, wholesale, system parts manager, and then after that went to service department. So it's been
I remember that. Yeah, your story is a good one. What about you, Michael?
I came up through the business. How's that?
Yeah, I know your story too. Yeah, you came up through everything. Sean, did you come through parts and service?
I actually started out as a technician, and then into service, and then into parts for a little while, and then back to the service side of it. So
great. So we've got a good mix. And Ellen, I remember your story. You started as a driver, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, this is great. So, historically, parts and service always battles. And, even in recent conversations, we hear stories of service always questioning parts, and they're not confident in parts, so they don't feel like they can sell. So where can we break those barriers, and where can we find and include everyone together so that service has that confidence in parts, that they know that the parts are going to be there, or if they're not there, they're easily, we can get them. So Ellen, I'll start with you. What are some things that you guys implement to not battle?
The service manager that I work with, we're actually really, really close. We do a definite process of, we work on owning, fixing, and moving on from every single situation. So we focus mostly on communication, and then we kind of just work toward service managers. There was a quote that they are always putting out fires, and parts is always looking for smoke. So while Shonda is working closely on working out the shop, I'm watching from afar and kind of trying to make sure that there's not more issues in the background. It's mostly a very big team effort, and we focus a lot on communication.
That's huge. What about you, Robert? Do you guys have any battles? Do you have to put out any fires between parts and service?
It is that age-old test between us all, but we try to work very well here. Actually, when I joined the auto group, I think I told you, Kaylee, we pick a word for the year, and my word is synergy, which was to join all the departments within the store and have us working as one group. That's sales, service, and parts. Which we do quite well. Our parts director, myself, and the other stores, we got a couple implementation things that we do to stay in communication on parts orders and making sure things get ordered just through the electronic aspect of our DMS, and even just an email chat list that goes out every day once the parts are in, so everybody sees it and knows how to work the list and stay on top of it. So yeah, it's still there. We still have our complications every once in a while, but ultimately it's just a structure of trying to be one team with one goal and trying to get the customer in and out and taken care of.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that with parts and service, when they can communicate and work together and see that we're all working towards the same goal, but just in a different way. So yeah. What about you, Michael?
Well, I think it's to what Robert said. It's an age-old separation. I think the first thing you have to do, and he's talking about synergy. I'm talking about collaboration, and where everybody understands uh, who benefits who, and everybody really benefits each other if we all work together. I've kind of eliminated, at least in my philosophy, parts and service departments. It's fixed ops. So regardless where you're at, what side of the table you're at, everybody's working towards the same result. Uh, are we there 100%? No, but it's you're always working on these things. You're dealing with people, so there's different thoughts and different ideas. So you just continue to work on them and break them down.
Yeah, definitely. And Sean, what about you guys? Do you guys ever battle or you have to deal with that stuff?
No, in the past, yes, ma'am. Believe I've worked at some stores where it was always like us against them or them against us, and it was a lot of friction there, right? And a lot of it emanated from the lack of communication, or, I mean, let's just be honest, simple, stupid mistakes. Not hitting the order button, not telling somebody the next day that something back ordered, or the technician not ordering the right part. That's a problem too. Sometimes they're looking in the parts catalog themselves, trying to order their own parts and send it through, and it's not the part they really needed. So that creates delays. Once you get to the point where everybody understands how they get paid, right? Technicians get paid for working on cars, and parts gets paid for putting parts on the cars. It eliminates a lot of that. And so we print out the list of every day of what's on order. I have somebody dedicated to calling the customers. I mean, there's a lot of just small processes in place. It all boils down to communication. And like Robert said, a spirit of synergy, if you will. I often say in meetings, people come into our dealership, they don't see the parts department, they don't see the service department, they don't see the sales department. They see the Honda store, they see the Chrysler Jeep Dodge store, they see the VW store, whatever store it is, put whatever name in front of it. That's what a customer sees. They don't separate the departments, and neither should we.
Yeah. And you touched on, misdiagnosing from technicians. That was something I wanted to bring up was, what are some things that you guys have implemented to put into place to keep the peace between techs and parts for that? Because we all know that when you misdiagnose parts and you end up ordering them, it turns into obsolescence if you don't return them. So just want to get some of your guys' thoughts on just keeping the peace between techs and parts people. Ellen, I'll start with you.
So currently our dealership actually works out of 3 buildings on about an acre lot. So a lot of our communication, our catalog through our brand actually has a messaging system that you can send stuff directly to technicians. They can send pictures directly to you. It's a whole entire texting app type of thing. And that's been kind of in the works currently. We're getting ready to switch over to that. And so it's a lot of communicating between 3 buildings. We print off a lot of pictures. We talk to a lot of technicians. Parts here is actually on the move a lot, trying to just make sure that we cover all of our bases to make sure that the correct parts are getting ordered.
That's a great way to do it. What about you guys, Robert?
Yeah, so kind of similar aspect. We communicate electronically through a couple texting apps that are available that we use in the shop that parts and service are joined in, so everybody can kind of see what's going on. One of our biggest things is the way our shop is laid out. Our parts department is kind of centralized to the whole thing, so we try to get the parts guys out there in the shop with them. One of our main long-term focus goals here to kind of eliminate a lot of it is to actually employ a fixed parts supplier in the shop that actually goes and does the ordering at the bay with the technician and processes everything. So it's something we're working towards. We're working on staffing for it and whatnot, but it's our ultimate goal is to get somebody in the shop long-term that can just function with the techs, keep them working, and keep the flow going as quickly as possible. So
I think that's great. And I've heard of a few dealerships adopting that idea. And I think it's huge because most people are so visual when you're out there and the tech can actually kind of show you what they're looking at. And then looking at the catalog, you can figure it out a little bit faster. So that makes complete sense. Michael, what do you guys do?
Well, I think we've adopted, a lot of us have learned over the years, and our dealer group, we have a central parts warehouse, and then we have small parts facilities within each store. And what we've ended up doing, one, we use a communication process. We're now converted over to Teams, and that's worked out real well. We've been able to build the teams per the brand, so that everybody's cross communicating when parts are ordered or when they come in, special order parts, so that the front end, back end, wherever the employees are, they can get that communication. To Robert's point, we actually have expressed the desire to have our parts associates go out and work in the bay with the technician, making sure that the right components are being ordered, so that there isn't any delay, to what Sean was referencing on getting the parts, getting the cars fixed, especially nowadays when we have part shortages and backlogs and everything else. You can't make those mistakes where you thought you could make before.
No. And Sean, being that you came through being a tech, you might have a different perspective, because there's always a battle between techs and parts, because techs always want parts to have everything and it's not possible. So how do you guys accomplish keeping the peace?
Well, I think COVID cured everybody of parts being on the shelf in a lot of cases. So we've come to expect that we have to order things now. On the other side of that is, I actually overstock a little bit when parts are available, stuff like that. We buy them and put them on the shelf. I'm not afraid to have a little inventory. I'm not that worried about being too lean. But the pictures, the videos, carry it in there, talk with your parts person, get your parts person from behind the counter to go look at the car. The parts people in our stores run the parts out to the techs. They don't have to transverse, a whole shop to come get a part, because I believe in overstaffing by one in every position. So therefore, I have somebody available to do those things. Nothing more frustrating than looking at a parts diagram and you got all these things and you go, oh, well, I thought that 50-cent gasket was included in that set. And then you find out the next day it's not, and it's holding up a $2,000 job, and it's going to be 3 days to get the 50-cent gasket. So we try to avoid those things as much as possible. But I have to give it up to our team for really working together and understanding each other's needs, because again, go back, they understand how they all get paid. And if we're not delivering cars back to customers and receiving payment, nobody's getting paid.
Exactly. I think that's the biggest thing, is making sure everyone's kind of paid on parts and service, so everyone can see the same goal.
They're all tied together.
Exactly. It's all tied together. So I want to pick on parts people for a little bit, and I want to know what your guys is, because you're constantly trying to hire and look for great people. So what are some qualities you guys look for when you're hiring certain parts people? I'll go backwards. I'll start with Sean.
For myself, I actually don't believe in going out and hiring parts people. I actually always grow from within. 3 of the 4 people I have on the back counter at the Honda store started off in detail, and then worked up to like lot porters, and then to the counter. At the Acura store, much the same story. 50% of them were, cleaning cars or moving cars around on the lot, and Mazda the same way. So I'm not a big fan of going out and hunting for parts people, because it's hard to untrain bad habits.
Yes. So what qualities did those people have that you saw that you thought they would be a good fit for parts?
Well, I mean, the ability to get along with others, right? Empathy and understanding of the situation. And you have to have a certain level of intelligence. Parts is not easy. There's a lot going on there. And there's a lot of processes, like, we have chat functions, we have timelines. Somebody says, oh, it wasn't me. I'm going to go look. Oh, right there in the timeline, it was you. At 12:48, you said this, right? So the accountability means everything, right? If people will hold themselves accountable and go, hey, guess what? I screwed that one up. That goes a long way with me.
Yeah, that's huge. Mike, what about you? What are some qualities you look for when you're hiring parts people?
First off, you can't find them. So to Sean's point, you try to develop them.
Yep.
Usually who you find who's out looking in today's world is they weren't fitting in the world that they were in. So therefore you're just moving worlds and you're going to end up with the same results, or that individual's not going to stick for some reason. So we find it best if we can grow our people. I mean, regardless what position. And if I do happen to find somebody, we really vet them hard to make sure that they're a good fit, and we cross interview with a number of people, so it's not one person's opinion. It's you get a lot of input, cross input, so that you can make the right choice.
I think that's huge to have multiple people in on the decision. So yeah, that makes sense. Robert, what are some qualities you look for?
For us, we very similar to what Sean said. We're looking for somebody who's very empathetic and can get along with the group that's there. Obviously, a lot of what we start with when we start them out in our positions here, we're starting in the back of the house. They're starting as a shipper receiver. They're learning how to do the basic processes before they're really on a counter. Far and few between. I have to agree with everybody. It's hard to find a quality parts guy right on the counter right off the bat that kind of comes in. So it's definitely become a grow your own situation. No different than the rest of the stores kind of become as well. Just taking in and sitting them with the right person and having the right kind of lead person in your parts department to develop them for you too. But just somebody who's trainable, somebody who really just wants to show up, work, and do the best they can every day is kind of what we need anymore.
Yeah, just show up.
more than that. But obviously, just the wanting the desire to work and knows the concepts of it. So.
Yeah, and that will lead me to my next thing, but I want to get to Ellen. What are some good qualities that parts people have that you look for?
At our dealership, we kind of similarly have done the same thing as everyone else here. A lot of our people, we end up growing. I've hired a decent amount of lot techs. I've had a lot of people grow up from a driver. The biggest thing here is we're just looking for someone who's teachable and someone who's willing to learn. Someone who's dedicated and is just interested in something. The parts department isn't someone's main goal in their whole life to be like, hey, I want to be part of a parts department. But we're just looking for people who are interested and who are willing to follow the processes and kind of just be a part of our team.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, that to your point was, most people don't say like, hey, I want to go work in the parts department. But once you're there, it's almost like you fall in love with it and you stick with it for most people. So, so one of the points I was gonna bring up that Robert was mentioning was kind of motivating people and the team. So we're talking about battling the battle between parts and service, but how do we motivate people to just be more, wanting to show up and wanting to grow and do more? Is there anything that you guys are doing that I guess most people maybe not be thinking about that you're doing to motivate people? And I will start with Ellen.
We've kind of started doing more of like an individual analysis of each individual employee and kind of setting their own personal goals and like what they're looking for at the end. It seems to be working out rather well. You take the individual time together, and I think it means a lot to a lot of these people just to know that someone's interested in where they're going and where they're going to end up. And I think that's really helping a lot of our guys here, especially, is just kind of setting individual goals and helping them meet them.
Oh, I like that. And then they can see the future of what the end goal is. Robert, do you guys have anything that you guys do to help motivate?
So one thing we kind of pride ourselves on here was setting career paths and career goals, similar to Ellen said, and kind of showing them a path to a parts manager. Everything we focus on is trying to put them in a path to a department head and show them where they could go with the dedication, the work, the training, and paying attention. We do a large wholesale business here, so even just getting into our wholesale business and between the 5 stores we have here in Stanton, obviously always developing and having the need for the next round of people to take over those departments is something that we kind of fall into right now. So, we're trying to breed that next group of parts managers ultimately within each of the stores and really develop them for what they need. But yeah, it's very different to find somebody who's dedicated to a parts world. Once they're in there, they do enjoy it. I was very similar. I didn't think I was going to leave the parts world when I ended up going to service. But it's definitely a position that you can kind of work through and definitely just setting a career path. And I think that's the biggest thing is having it on paper for them, putting it in front of them and taking the time to really show them and develop them what they can do if they stuck it out and did the training and put forth the effort.
Yeah, that makes sense because I feel like in the past we haven't really groomed people for the role and they've just been thrown into it. And then when you take the opportunity to groom them, that's when you can, kind of get a lot of the training out of the way rather than like, here you go, you're the new parts manager. Let's kind of train you really fast. So, Michael, what about you guys? What do you guys do to motivate your team?
Well, you have team building events. You have a little competition among everybody. You compensate your staff well so that it's based on performance and it's based on how the department performs or how the group performs. So you've got everybody that's kind of collaborating together to make sure that the end result is a positive end so everybody benefits from it, including the consumer. Because I think that's where all of our paychecks come from. So if we keep everybody focused on the customer or on the guest, as I'd like to call, I think that you're a world ahead.
Yeah, definitely. And lastly, Sean, what about you guys? What do you do to motivate?
Well, much like the other folks, we try to give them a career path, and we're with a growing organization. Umansky's gone from one dealership to 27 in like 6 years, so there's lots of opportunities available, and it's crazy to me how parts people get in there. Like you said, they love it, right? I mean, there are so many long-term parts people, and they don't move around a whole lot. The good ones. So trying to be creative. I mean, you probably all seen my cookouts that I do for everybody on a monthly basis. And we do, I try to feature people, especially from parts, recognition goes a long way because they're back there hiding in the back of the house and think nobody knows who they are. I spend time with them at each location on a weekly basis, back there for 2 hours yesterday morning at one store and 2 hours at another one today, totally focused on them, listening to each one of them, really engaging with them goes a long way. And then I just implemented a bonus program that will pay them out on December 15th of this year, 2023. And it's basically a match, right? We set them up as a certain amount. If they're willing to put this side amount, we're going to match that dollar amount, right? So a little bit of incentive, a little bit of retention right there. And I also tie them into the service gross. They're not just locked into the parts gross. They get a little tiny piece of so they have a little skin in the game, right? Making sure that service gets done. So that way they're more actively involved and they want to know what's going on in the shop. They're not just sitting back there playing on their phones if they're not have a tech in front of them.
That's great. Yeah. I think having them be part of service is huge to really just get them involved more. I want to touch a little bit more on like inventory for parts because that's where I think a lot of the battle comes from and the lack of confidence of service not selling or most importantly even tires really because they're kind of afraid to go historically. I'm not saying your guys's, but like they're afraid to go to parts to see if they're in stock or there's just no process in place. So what have you guys implemented to give your service people the confidence to talk to parts and to sell more because they have confidence in their parts departments? I'll start with you, Ellen.
So every single time we have any recalls, any customers looking to order parts, anything like that, we automatically get a notification from our BDC. So we're able to pre-order a lot of parts. And every single month we go over like our top 25 best sellers of things and we kind of bulk up on them. There's obviously certain brakes and stuff that we sell all the time. Nissan has a line that covers a lot of products with like one part number. So we just do a lot of focus on that. We commonly also know what our guys are selling on a day-to-day basis. And we kind of hone in on that. We look at our next day schedule, and we kind of work with that as well and go through the list of what they're scheduled for the day before. And then we pre-order a lot of things that we know the technician is either going to need or something that we know is maintenance. And if we don't have it, we're just always constantly checking our schedule to make sure that we have everything that we would potentially need for those cars coming in the next day.
I love that. What about you guys, Robert?
Obviously, you know that the elephant in the room of everything that's been going on the last couple of years is supply chain issues, and just the availability of parts have been challenging, to say the least here. So, you know, everything that we look for, we just try to utilize the local dealers as well as local vendors, and making sure that every estimate that comes through, if we don't stock the part, we're finding the best source for it, trying to get the job done and completed as quickly as possible. If it has to go on back order, then, you know, we know we've exhausted every option available before we put that customer down. And then putting the pressure back on our factory reps when it comes down to that situation, and getting them involved and getting them in to handle what we need, and trying to pull these parts and getting them here. Because ultimately, like I said, we're all dealing with it. Doesn't matter what brand you're with. Everybody's dealing with it in some way, shape, or form. So it's just a matter of how you do, what you make the best of with, and really just trying to source parts and making sure you take the time to not just look and see it's not at the warehouse and call it quits, and take that extra step to check local dealers, call the local dealers, look at the independents, and, you know, make the recommendation to the customer if they want to go that route to come off brand and go that route also. So it's really just the all hands on deck kind of situation to try to make the best of what we got and get the vehicles in and out quickly for them.
Yeah, definitely. And motivating your team to exhaust all of those avenues, rather than, because I hear a lot where they're like, they didn't really try that hard, you know, but that's the thing where you have to, parts people can almost be like they're going on a scavenger hunt for parts sometimes, and it's exhausting and disappointing when you can't figure it out. So Michael, what about you guys? What are some things that you've done for that?
Well, it's very similar. You just don't stop at the catalog. You have to get out and resource. You've got a guest that you've got to take care of, and you need to make sure that guest understands that you have their interests at heart. So you go to the end of the world to be able to provide that service to that customer. And a lot of times it's tough. We're waiting on a part to show up from eBay. It's the only place I can find it, and it's coming from England, of all places. So we'll do anything and everything that we can just to service and be able to provide that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And Sean, what are some things that you guys do?
Well, you know, when you going back to your original question of what do we do to make the technicians competent, we stock tires, right? So I'm constantly on them. You can't sell what you don't have. So therefore, we have really probably doubled or even tripled our inventory of tires, because I don't really care about making $1 on a tire. It's about the ancillary sales that come with it, longevity, right? You get the brake pads, you get the filters, you get an alternator, a radiator down the road, because you're keeping them from going somewhere else. You know, so those things are huge to me. Brake pads, if we know that we were coming up short, we couldn't get something right, we constantly write those things down, and we're checking them when they're available. We'll order a half dozen of them. Same thing with an alternator, same thing with the radio. I don't care. We'll stock it, you know, because Honda and Acura and Mazda, they're all pretty generous, right? As long as you keep an eye on your obsolescence. As you remember, when we reviewed, our obsolescence was like under 3% of our inventory. So therefore, my parts managers are super in tune, and I got to give it up to them. You know, kudos for the job that they do and keeping up with those things. But one thing that did really tick me off when I first got with this group and these stores in this area was it's back ordered. That's like a technician going, well, waiter going to wait, you know. No, pick up the phone, call the other guy, look on carpart.com, look on eBay, look on whatever it takes to get that part. And if you know something's back ordered, find another source and buy 50 of them. 50 of them cabin filters that we can't get for 2 months, 25 of them batteries that they're telling us we can't get for they don't even have an ETA on it. Find somebody else to get them and put them on the shelf. We're going to have parts for the customer.
Exactly. Get them for the customer. And so we brought up obsolescence a couple of times, and it's kind of one of those things where if you're not focused on it and you're not controlling what I always say, the domino effect of obsolescence, then it's going to grow and get out of control. And it's just amazing how many dealerships it's out of control, and then there's back order problems, right? And you can't get the parts, but then you have all this obsolescence, wasted inventory. Is there anything that you guys do creatively to keep a pulse on your obsolescence? I'll start with you, Ellen.
So I actually have a member of the parts department, and she actually maintains the majority of the inventory here. We do bin checks, special order checks, warranty purge, cores at least once a week, if not more. So we're always constantly checking and being on top of things. That is her primary job, is to focus on the inventory and make sure that everything is where it says it is, and we make sure that we always have what it says we have, just to make sure we always are on top of obsolescence, parts, making sure we're not missing something, nothing's going to give us a struggle at the end of the day, because those are the things that really end up messing you up with the technicians. It says you've had one for 3 months, it disappeared, gone. So we always are making sure that we're checking that and making sure that we have exactly what we have. And we run the obsolescence report at right before the return is due, and we'll get rid of a lot of the old obsolescence.
Yeah. And I love how you've delegated that to someone to help you stay in control of it. And so that, I think that's important. Robert, what about you guys? What do you guys do for obsolescence?
So our parts director here probably does a phenomenal job. Obviously, like I said, we do a large amount of wholesale where we're at. So we're dealing with a lot of body, a lot of plastic, a lot of things that can become issues and concerning. And, the biggest thing is very similar in the shop with fixed right first time is, exactly what we've been talking about is picking the part right the first time as well, making sure we're doing and identifying the right part right off the bat. So we're not sitting on parts that we can't return. Ultimately, really kind of the big aspect is playing the game with the manufacturer and making sure we're hitting any and every incentive that we need to acquire as much return dollars as possible to keep ourselves running and getting the parts that we need to return back and not sitting on them. And ultimately, at the end of the month, our variances are pretty spot on, pretty good. So, just kudos to the team here and doing a good job. It's really just, it is managing it, and everybody's got to be a part of it. It can't just be one person. It has to be a team effort back there. The advisors, the pickers, the shipper, receiver, your manager, everybody has to work together.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know some things that we talk about with our clients is getting the service and technicians involved so that they understand the obsolescence and the impact of it. Because if you have a bunch of obsolescence, you can't have more of the right parts. So if they're all working together. Michael, what about you?
Well, you're tiring up, biggest part of the dealer's money is tied up in inventory. So you got to make good use of it. It's an investment. So you got to turn that. And everybody is responsible for it. If you order parts wrong, the service department, we chat with them, and if we're stocking way too many or we're not moving the parts, we look at turns, 6 months, 12 months, 9 months, and we keep that inventory turning because it's, like I say, it's capital, and we want to make sure that we have good product in place.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And then lastly, Sean, what do you guys do to keep obsolescence? Because I know your guys' team does an awesome job with it.
Yeah, so those guys are proud to tell me when I ask them, I say, hey, what's our inventory? What dollar do we have in the inventory? Is our obsolescence under 3% of that? And what's our fill rate? They can spit those numbers out to me every Monday morning without me asking. It only takes a few times I ask until they know what I'm looking for. And they do just an incredible job. My hat is off to them for the job that they do. I have zero complaints, and my guys are great.
Good.
Wow. Love it. Great panel. Great leaders, Kaylee. I've been taking a lot of notes, and, it all comes back to something I heard at the beginning of the panel: communication and synergy. And congratulations to all of you. Great job, everybody. I want to thank Kaylee from PartsEdge, of course, for putting the panel together. Ellen, wonderful to have you on the roundtable. Great information. I took a
Thank
lot of
you.
notes, especially on this information you shared. So we look forward to having you back again and again. So,
Absolutely.
love it. Mike Weldon, wow, great stuff. So it's amazing, Mike, how much information that keeps coming out and seems to have no end. So
You got to learn every day.
great stuff. And Sean Butler, thank you so much. And Robert Miggs from Carter Myers, great information. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Learned a
Ted.
lot from this panel,
Thank
Kaylee.
you, Kaylee.
So, Kaylee, it sounds like that Old West battle is fading.
It is.
But
That's a good
lot
thing.
of good best practices here. So,
Yeah, it was great. Thank you guys for joining.
Kaylee, if our audience wants to learn more about PartsEdge, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can go to our website or they can reach out to me. I'm active on LinkedIn. But yeah, definitely reach out.
PartsEdge.com. Kaylee's email is scrolling in the bottom below the panel. So want to thank Kaylee and the panel. Kaylee Felio, everybody, and the Old West Battle of Parts and Service panel here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.